Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I'm your host Sean Garmer. Here with me today, not Mark Morrison, is
hmm
Chapter Selects Randy Isbelle. How are you
Yeah,
doing, sir?
I'm doing okay. I got the deep, sexy voice going on because I went to an MMA fight and
Yeah.
yelled a lot, and my voice is not happy with me today. But I'm excited. How long has this been since I have been on a video games to the max episode? To be,
Oh,
I
what
don't
was
think
it
I was on the
like?
Game of the Year stuff this year,
No,
so I
not
feel
this
like it's been
year.
at least a year.
Yeah. Wow, that long.
hmm
That's insane. To think about. But I mean, to be fair, you've started your journey with all the sports
Yeah.
stuff, calling the your local
hmm
basketball, and you do
Yeah.
baseballs
Yeah.
too.
Baseball's going
So
strong. I will have zero time in May, so I'm glad you asked me now.
yeah,
With
right.
all the tournaments and championship stuff going on in May, it's a busy time, but
Yeah,
having fun.
glad I could catch you before you. And you try to stay up to playing games, but I know it's you got other things going on, so
Oh
it's
man,
not
it's
your.
I always fall into I think I've talked about this on the show before. I'm a big baseball person and I love MLB The Show and I buy it every year, and then around this time of year, like good stuff will come out and I'll just sit down and like I'm gonna play it, or I'll just play another baseball game. So I've dabbled in things, but MLB The Show has definitely um, it's it's where most of the hours go right now. That's for sure.
Well, for sure, we will talk about that.
Mhm.
Randy's been playing some Resident Evil 4 remake as well, and some
Yes.
of those Pixel remasters.
hmm
I've gotten to check out that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed DLC, and an indie game called The Last Case of Benedict Fox as well, which is something it had some stuff I wasn't expecting. And then, of course, we got to talk about the CMA blocking Microsoft's big merger of Activision Blizzard and where they're going to go from here with that, and some other things like the Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, I should mention,
hmm
PC and PS5 issues, and some other things. The Mario movie finally made the $1 billion that
It's
we've
crazy.
been slowly inching towards
hmm
all these times. So
It's
we'll
worth
get
it. It's
into.
worth it. I'm
Oh
glad they
yeah,
got
for
there.
sure. I'm glad that they did as well, because that movie is definitely worth that time. But we're gonna do all that right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, so just to get this stuff out of the way, because we got to sell things a little bit here.
Mhm.
So just in case it's your first time watching and listening, or it's your 100th time watching and listening, we always appreciate you. Thank you, regardless of how you consume the show. It's always great to hear from you, anyone and everyone, and know that you guys are tuning in. So we do the show live. Usually it's on Mondays, but today I have to work around Randy's schedule. We're doing it on
Appreciate
Sundays.
it.
And I appreciate you being on, because I don't know if I could do this on myself. So we have, of course, you can watch on YouTube, W2M Network on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever it is that you can find W2M Network. We're there live, and you can also watch on demand later on the YouTube channel as well. You go like, subscribe, ring the bell. Whenever we do something, it'll be there. And of course, we don't just do this. You have Randy's Chapter Select show, which they did their review of the Super Mario Brothers movie.
hmm
And then you have the Riley Strip Broadcasting people that they stay up with all the movie stuff. So anytime there's a new movie coming out, they have a review up pretty much that next
Right.
Tuesday. So you can make sure you check them out. You got Talk to Keiki for anime, you got MMA for Marks MMA, and you got some other stuff there too. So thank you again for checking out. And of course, on the podcast side, you can always just search Video Games to the Max and you'll find us there. Search Randy's Chapter Select, search wherever, and you'll find that show and you can subscribe and listen there. So let's get into it here, Randy. I'm gonna leave some of that CMA stuff for a little bit later, because I
Sure.
feel like unless you just don't consume gaming news at all, you've probably heard your favorite people talk about that at
hmm
this point. It has been exhausted.
Yes.
Uh so we will talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about some games that we've been playing
Sure.
here, Randy. Like, so you're the big Resident Evil 4 fan. Mark's talked
Yeah.
about it as well. He
Mhm.
reviewed it. So what do you think about the RE4 remake?
Well, I will say this: I am a big Resident Evil fan. While I think Resident Evil 4 was fantastic, I still blame it for the downfall of that series for a while. Because of 4, we got 5 and 6 because they went more action oriented. Yes, the remake very much action oriented as well. They hit all the big marks for this game. They just continue to do this with the remakes. The original Resident Evil remake, way back on the GameCube, they iterated on the whole system and made it even better. RE2 remake was absolutely phenomenal. RE3 remake, I think I like more than most people. Yes, it is a shorter experience, and they do cut out some sections that are interesting, but I thought overall it was fine. But this has been absolutely fantastic. I've already beat it 2 or 3 times, trying to slowly work my way through the platinum. Trying to right now, the last time or this last playthrough I'm going through, I'm trying to do the no heal and no talk to the merchant thing at the same time, which is a lot more slow paced than the other playthroughs, but it's unbelievably phenomenal. And just I think a lot of people were worried, and I'm sure it has been said by Mark too, when this game came out, that it'd be too serious and they wouldn't go with all the campy stuff that was going on with the original Resident Evil 4. And no, it is just as campy, sometimes even more campy. And some of the little Easter eggs that they throw into this game is phenomenal. It's with remakes and remasters and stuff, as far as your guys' game of the year, it always gets confusing, but this is by far the best game I've played this year. Not that I've played a ton, but
Right.
I've also dabbled in Dead Space remake, and it doesn't touch this at all.
Yeah, I mean, the Dead Space remake was really good for what it is as well. But yeah, Mark had all kinds of glowing praise too about it. And yeah, I'm wanting to check it out whenever there's another, because there was a little bit of a lull, but during that lull I had to catch up on some other games. So I'm hoping if there's another lull in this year, which right now we're starting to get into we're gonna have a big game release every week.
Yes.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's one I want to check out for sure. I loved Resident Evil 2. 3 kind of not so much, but
I get it.
Like 4 is much more like a village, which I liked a lot. So we'll see. And
yeah, I think you nailed it perfectly with the village comparison. And I think we talked about it here because I was on that game of the year when we gave Village game of the year, right? For video games to the max, or it was at least really close. And it was because
I think it was,
they touched on different horror aspects, and a lot of it was based around RE4, and you just kind of knew that they were trying things out to then be able to do this remake, and they've just nailed it. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've seen anybody like it got 10s everywhere when it was coming out, so it's definitely being one of those that's going to be up for the game of the year talk, for sure. I mean, have you been playing anything else?
You had mentioned I've been touching on those Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters. I didn't buy the whole bundle. I'm just going to buy them one at a time as I get through them, instead of spending the $70-$80 or whatever the bundle was. It's like, all right, I'm going to get through the first one. All right, I've now beat the first one. I'm like 30 minutes into the second one, and we'll see how long I can continue on. I've now already hit this point where 2 and 3 were, I believe, the only numbered ones that weren't online that I've never beat.
Right.
Obviously 3 kind of had its own release issues, and what we only got on like the DS.
Yeah, you got the 3D version on the DS.
Yeah. So I just never got into that, and 2 is not good. So we will see how far I get into 2 before I say screw it, I'm just going to move on. But I'm trying to follow a guide because I want to platinum these games. So it's helping me go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how you kind of go against the systems that they built. I don't want to like overpower myself too much, but Final Fantasy 2 is very innovative and ambitious with what they wanted to do, which was kind of what Nintendo did, or the games in Nintendo did. It was like their sequels were always way different than the originals, and
Yeah.
Some love them, some don't, and we'll see if I can get through 2. But they're beautiful, and I know I've talked about it with, or at some point on the show, with them putting like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9 with newer PlayStation versions on there, which is kind of all original RPGs should be re-released with fast forward buttons and or
I
auto
agree.
battle buttons.
I agree.
It changes it so much. Like being able to just play the original Final Fantasy and know that I am under-leveled for a boss, so I need to grind a little bit. And to just go, you know what? I'm going to watch a show off to the side, and I'm just going to auto battle and kind of play it in the background. Works really, really well. And then when it's time to focus, the game's good enough to focus on. But man, auto battles and like the 3x speed stuff that you got from the 7, 8, and 9 games, it just changes the game for those old school RPGs.
Yeah, man. It's absolutely like incredible that they've been able to add that, and how much it adds to the fact that, hey, now I can get through this and I don't have to necessarily like grind forever in a day. And even in like Octopath Traveler 2 that I've been playing, it doesn't have the fast forward for the actual battles, but it does has fast forward in battle. So like the attacks are faster,
there you go.
And that kind of thing. So that helps some. You're not sitting there feeling like, oh my God, I wait for this thing to do this. And, I mean, it would be nice to have it where you could, and yeah, they do have things where you can cut off the battles that happen and stuff, because it does have like random encounters.
Yeah.
So,
you can do that in these too, where you just turn them off. And I think it's brilliant that, it lets you play it however you want. These games are 40 years old now. So if you want to play it the way it was intended, you absolutely can. But am I going to get on somebody for going into the options and messing with the systems that they allow you to mess with? Which, like with at least the first Final Fantasy remaster, I was messing around through the options, and you could like get 5 times gil, or no, you can just get no gil if you want to make it even more challenging. So there's just different ways you can play these games. I think it's just great, and lets people that are slightly younger than us experience the games that we played on and either break them or have fun with them.
Exactly. And you don't have to spend 60 hours on the game if you don't want to. You want to spend, 10. You can still have the same experience, you know. So I appreciate that they added that. Those are things that should be, when you bring in collections like that, have that in there.
For sure.
Anything else you want to?
No, the rest is all. I'm just having a lot of fun on the PlayStation Plus stuff.
Yeah.
Not just the monthly stuff, but the things that have just been thrown in there. I go through there sometimes and mess around. Also bought a couple games on the spring sale that was there, that games that just passed me by. I'm absolutely loving Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, which came out a few years ago. I don't know why I've never heard of this game, but it's a cute little platformer where you can change into different animals, though I've now gotten to the point where I have too many animals. And instead of just being able to switch over with L2 and R2, you always have to go in this circle and change things out in your dial. And a lot of puzzles make you change animals multiple times. And some of the animals then have magic. Then you have to go through their little dial as well. And that gets a little annoying. But it's really fun. I'm also just started on a game called Typo Man, which is Limbo with words.
And
it's just as hard as Limbo was the first time through. It's kind of a fun little game. So that's kind of me right now. I am just in a holding pattern until Final Fantasy 16 comes out. I'm trying not to overspend on other games, when especially I knew May was going to be extremely busy. So I'm just kind of throwing in little side games for now. But Final Fantasy 16 is the next one that's an absolute must buy for me.
That's where I think I'm at too. I have to really look at the calendar, but as far as like must, I know I'm getting that day one for sure. Final Fantasy 16, because the other stuff, like like what you're playing, remasters or like Advance Wars, is something that it's older. I can just play it when it has its moment. I'm still considering whether or not Diablo IV, if I want to or not. I think I'm really gonna. I didn't get to play the beta the first couple of times. I'm gonna make sure when they do this last one, I hop in and see.
I think Diablo 4 for me is going to be a lot like the new Star Wars game, which we will talk about its issues later on in the show. I know the history of these two companies, and I know how bad the first Star Wars game was when it first released, and I know how bad Diablo games can be for the first few months until they work on stuff.
Not to mention how much long you have to wait in a queue to get to play.
Yeah. So those are games that I will absolutely play, but I will not be a day oneer by any means. I'll wait for it to kind of go through its cycle a little bit and calm down and work through the bugs. And in like 6 months or so, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, that's always the best when you can wait and you know you're going to get the best version later. That's definitely better than sitting here and getting a day one and having to deal with what folks are dealing with now.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
As far as goes for me, I have off Game Pass, which it came out on the 27th, a few days ago. The Last Case of Benedict Fox. I was kind of intrigued by it when it's been shown in trailers a few times, whether it was a Nintendo Direct or on a Microsoft's showcase thing, because it was kind of like a dark investigative story. I like those kind of things, kind of Sherlock Holmesy sort of. And it does have that. It has your investigation things. It has like puzzles you have to solve. But I didn't know it was a Metroidvania until I downloaded and put it in. And yeah, it's definitely a Metroidvania. As you go back and find things, you find the key, try to get in, go back there, figure out what's there. It has the map that's very much, Metroidy, that tells you exactly where the things are and where you have to. It's just getting to the certain area that I need to get past those points. That is not always easy because there's platforming as well. So some of the jumps are not easy to do, and then some of them you can't get there. And the battle mechanics were not so simple, because there's part of it, you have a gun that you build up by doing melee attacks, and then apparently it took me a while to realize that I have to use the gun to blow up a wall. So then it was like, wait a minute, now I ran out of enemies, so I can't use the gun. So like I had to go back and reset it to be able to do it, which that was kind of annoying. But I like the aesthetic. I like the world. It's really cool looking. I didn't expect that so far. So I'm usually not one for Metroidvanias. Mark is the one that loves those and jumps into them. I know you like them a little bit. I like them a little. So yeah, I bet if I showed it to him, he might actually like it. But he's opposed to Game Pass, so I have no idea when he would buy it or not.
Who is opposed to free games?
Somebody doesn't want to pay for a service. He would rather own everything. So I guess he never.
As somebody that owns, I got to turn the right way. As somebody that owns a lot of stuff, I was like, the newer stuff I don't care about as much. I just want the old stuff.
And that he loves to do that too, man. He's on here every week telling me about which thing he bought. He's had a PS3 dev kit for a while now, and he's been tinkering around with that for a while. So, and I should have noted at the top that Mark is not here because he had surgery on his ankle. He's going to be out anywhere from like 2 weeks to a month recuperating. Hopefully he gets better and, can be back soon. But the big game that I've been playing, I guess it's not big, it's a DLC, but it's a DLC to one of Nintendo's biggest releases from last year. Xenoblade Chronicles 3's story DLC, which is actually a prequel to the entire series, which is kind of cool to have in your final game, a prequel to the entire series, pretty much, where you play as all the founders, which includes the protagonists of the first two games, Shulk and Rex. So it's actually just I think I'm like about 6 or 7 hours or that I played, because I'm also kind of exploring and doing, these are big games that they want you to explore a lot of stuff. So, and then meeting the new characters are fun. Like I love Matthew and A. I think they're really great, like additions to the whole Xenoblade Chronicles universe. And then of course getting to meet Shulk and Rex in more adult forms is pretty cool too, because that's I didn't think that we were going to get that until they showed us this trailer. Surprisingly, like 2 weeks before this was going to come out. This was supposed to be out in the fall, and then all of a sudden randomly they go, "Oh, hey, it's coming out April 25th, by the way." Like Nintendo with their usual thing. But I mean, the gameplay is pretty much the same. They've added some tweaks here and there to kind of make it special, like the new kind of tag team mechanic that they have with certain characters. So that's been fun to play around with. And yeah, I just love being in that world. I'm kind of sad to like get to the end because I know that that's going to be the end with these characters. If they have another Xenoblade game, it's going to be like what Kingdom Hearts was supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a restart kind of thing. So yeah, but I'm glad that he's got to make his whole magnum opus that he wanted to make since Xenogears. He finally got to do it on the Nintendo Switch. And it looks like, by all accounts, this is another great addition to that franchise. So
hopefully they got to finish the story. I remember Xenosaga on the PS2, and that thing was supposed to be like 7 games.
Yeah,
and they threw it all together in 3, and it was a mess.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't do well sales-wise, and I think not too long ago, people wanted the remasters on Switch, and supposedly Bandai Namco did some kind of research, and like through that research, they found out a lot of people would buy it, so they were like,
I can't remember if I finished the third one for Xenosaga, but I beat the first 2, and I've played some of 3, but I just remember there were sections in that entire trilogy that were just like, what are they doing? Like, as a Metal Gear Solid fan, I am being a complete hypocrite here because Hideo Kojima likes to do the same thing. But I remember a point where I watched a 45-minute scene.
Yes.
They gave me control of the character. Yep. I walked out of one door, turned the corner, and walked into another door to another 30-minute scene.
Yep.
So, again, Metal Gear Solid loves to do that as well, but I got into that story a lot more than I did Xenosaga. So I'm glad that Xenoblade has really worked out. And while, yes, it's always sad when you have a big franchise like that coming to an end, at least, it hit the end that he wanted to this time.
Exactly. Yeah, with all of the different things that you can play with, there's the 3 games and the 3 DLCs, you have a complete story there, and that's pretty awesome to be able to do that. Because I thought when Xenoblade 3 ended, I was like, oh crap, they're not going to actually do the ending part. They're going to just kind of give us a little bit of the founding fathers, and that's going to be it. And then we're going to kind of just going to be up in the air as to, I guess this was the ending. Right. So thankfully it's good that we are getting that at least. So, and you can get, they've had other little expansion pieces, little story pieces, other DLC, like a battle arena and all that kind of stuff that they added in the other DLCs and other characters as well. So if you didn't pick up the expansion pass yet, $30 for all of that stuff is well worth it. Definitely go check it out if you played Xeno 3. So that's pretty much it for games we've been playing here. Just because we both reviewed this and then Rallis reviewed it as well. You guys loved it a lot. I listened to your review, you and Jens, and it's obviously a universally loved thing because the Mario movie has now made $1 billion globally. Awesome. Randy, I mean, and I've looked at this, look at the numbers, and it's, normally for all these Marvel movies and stuff like that, like the difference between like domestic and foreign box office is normally huge, right? It's a like big discrepancy. The way that they've been able to, it just released in Japan obviously this weekend, which helps a lot, and South Korea, and they actually made a different Japan script for it. It has a completely different script that was made by done by Nintendo as well. So I thought that was interesting that Miyamoto.
So is it a completely different movie?
No, it's the same movie. They just
they
made sure that it's not like just translated.
Gotcha. Okay.
Loosely, it's they made sure that for Japan that they can understand this, and it has some local stuff in it as well. So
I had to ask because Jens likes to throw in random versions of these video game movies on Chapter Select. So I was worried that all of a sudden I was gonna have to watch the Japanese version of this thing.
Yes. No, but it's crazy to me that it definitely deserves it, right? As the first video game movie to hit that billion mark. Now going to set the standard for all the other video game movies, but obviously helps that it's Mario too.
Yeah. And it helps that they went at it in a smart way. I mean, to get Illumination out there that does Minions and it does putting it as a cartoon and not trying to go this Super Mario, and not to rag on the old Super Mario movie from the early 90s too much, but just Mario is one of those franchises that should be a cartoon. And it works out extremely well that way. And that's why this worked and the one back in the early 90s did not. But yes, that has a cult following now, but it's not a good movie. It's absolutely not a good movie. It's fun to sit back and laugh at.
Right.
But it's not good. And now you can be over the top, you can be colorful, you can be goofy in this kind of stuff. And it just fits really well with the story. Now, am I saying all video game movies need to go in this direction? Of course not, because The Last of Us TV show was amazing with live action, and that would not have worked with animation. And I think what has me more excited is we are nearly 4 months through this year, and we've already got The Last of Us TV show and the Super Mario Brothers movie, which, you know what, absolutely were bangers. They nailed it. They were so good. Not on the Jens and Randy's movie scale, which we have to bump up because all video game movies back in the day were so bad that if we don't hate it, we have to give it an 8, or everything would be at a 1. So it's really nice that we have now had back-to-back hits that represent video games. Hopefully that means things are turning the corner. But there's another story that you have on here that has me worried for that same thing.
Well, definitely. I mean, and then to be fair, The Witcher's also been pulling its own weight, and it's going to have its season 3
still need to watch
in July. Obviously, going to be a little bit different, not having a different actor playing the main character this time, but we'll see how that goes. But for sure, it's great that this is happening. And, as Mark and I talked about last week, Miyamoto has hinted that there is other Nintendo movies to come.
Yeah.
So,
and again, they can go in completely different ways. If they make a Kirby movie, has to absolutely be animated. Zelda could go either way. Like a live action Zelda could be interesting, but if they do it in a cartoony way, I think it could hit too.
I don't think they could do it in a cartoony Illumination way.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's what I worry about. Is like if we're gonna try to make Illumination make all of these, they're really gonna have to get out of that.
Could do Kirby. I think Kirby would be great. Any kind of a Yoshi thing.
Yeah, Yoshi, Kirby, DK, even Star Fox. I think they could do because it doesn't have.
Nobody cares about that guy.
Yeah.
People care about Star Fox as much as they care about Kid Icarus anymore. It's just people will sit there and go, "We want them to come back," and then they come back and we're like, "Well, no, really."
I am glad that somebody has brought some sense to the table, because Mark, for about 10 minutes last week, tried to convince me that if they made a Star Fox movie, it's going to do amazing numbers because it's a movie that can work.
It depends on what they do with it. If it's a very good movie, it could be great. It's not going to be Mario levels of success,
right?
Just because it doesn't have that fan base. Like Mario that's video games. You ask people that have never heard of a video game before, and they show them a picture of Mario, they know who that is.
Exactly.
They're not going to do that with Star Fox. It's not
saying
but let's say they wanted to make would be bad.
Let's say they wanted to make a Nintendo Cinematic Universe per se, right? Yeah. I really hope that this is not a Marvel thing, and we're trying to. I don't think Nintendo
connect everything,
even though everybody everything seems to have a universe at this point. Like, what are the movies that let's say you got to have six movies.
Are we saying we're saying Nintendo Universe?
So that we can eventually build up to a Smash Brothers movie or something. I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to all be made by Illumination, but
I think if you're putting them in as a universe, you have to have them in the same style. So then when you combine them, you can't have a live action Zelda movie and call that part of the as the old NCU is what.
The NCU,
Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. But I think it'd have to be at least similar. But I think you could just throw in there Mario, Kirby, Yoshi, Donkey Kong as your 4. And then, again, I think Zelda's better live action. So you'd be a little different there. So it's tough to then try to figure out which direction you want to go if you have to stay Nintendo.
I don't think they'll do them live action. I think they will keep them animated.
Yeah.
I just worry about Illumination understanding that they got to be serious with the Zelda. Not that they have to be totally serious. You can obviously have gags, but it's got to be a little bit more serious when you're talking about Zelda, and obviously with Metroid as well. If you're gonna use both of those, which I think you can't.
Oh, Metroid,
have a Nintendo Cinematic Universe if you're not going to include Zelda and Metroid. Those are your two biggest franchises outside of everything that has to do with Mario.
But I think Zelda and Metroid both would be better fitted with a live action feel.
Yeah.
Which would take them away from this whole universe idea. But again, they could work animated in some way.
Yeah.
And then I like your Smash Brothers idea. They bring out all these movies and then just throw them in the pit and just have them go nuts. Because I mean, you already had that with the Donkey Kong scene, and how you could throw Sonic in there because Sonic's in Smash. It's combined in. Can we get a Mega Man movie, please? That's not horrible. That'd be great. That's what I want.
Well, I mean, Aaron says that Nintendo movies live action don't work at all.
For Mario, absolutely. I 100% agree that the live action for Mario does not work. However, some live action stuff works. Most of it is in Japan. As again, Jens and I have been going through a lot of these movies. I mean, you watch the review, so you know this Super Mario Brothers movie is not our favorite video game adaptation that we have reviewed on that show. The other one just nobody knows about because it's in Japan only.
The
Ace Attorney live action is so bonkers and over the top. It hits all of the feels. It's so good. But
hey, I mean, that's good. Like, see, that's the thing is, let's see if they go that route. I just want to see what other if they do eventually get to it, because first of all, you have the DK movie that we know is probably coming. We know we're getting, whether it's Super Mario Brothers 2, Yoshi's Island, or whatever it is. And
we're getting something.
Sorry, it's almost a month after the movie, so I'm sorry if I just, spoiled.
A sequel is coming. It made $1 billion, people.
Yeah, and maybe there's a Luigi's Mansion movie in there. Who knows? But that all has to do with Mario. So if you're gonna throw other Nintendo movies, and he mentions that we have a cast of characters that we could bring out. You definitely got to be doing Zelda, especially with the two big tentpole games that you have to feed off of, and the other lore that you have of Zelda to feed off of. So
speaking of Zelda, I'll just throw this in here because I won't be here when it releases. The Breath of the Wild game and this new one do not look like. I mean, I did not get into Breath of the Wild as other people.
Oh, okay.
And I will not be playing Tears of the Kingdom. However, I just want to throw it out there. And I've said this many times to our mutual friend, Robert Taylor. I hope it's a killer. I hope it's fantastic. I hope it's game of the year because everyone is so hyped for this game.
Yeah.
That while it's not for me, I'm not one of those people that goes, well, it sucks. No, it just wasn't for me. So I am sitting here as somebody who will not play this game that hopes that when that releases, it's 10 out of 10s everywhere. Because I know so many people are just waiting impatiently for it finally to drop.
Yeah, we'll get more into it a little later, but for sure, I'm also on that same vein as you. I wasn't a big fan of the first one just because it was way too there's open world, and then there was like way too open world for me, where it was like I don't want to feel like I've got to figure out everything that I'm going to be doing here. I want a little bit of direction,
Yes.
And
I'm too stupid to leave me alone with my own inhibitions. You give me an arrow, give me a list of quests, or I'm lost.
You don't have to point me in every direction.
Yeah.
But you got to let me know, okay, this is like the main story thing. Go over here if you want that, or, So we'll see. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I guess to move, just to answer Aaron's question here, they put it. Do you think that if they did Zelda, they'd let him talk, or he'd still be a silent protagonist and everybody else would talk for him?
The last time they let Link talk, it was horrible.
Well, this was the 90s. I mean, it was a CDI thing and it was terrible.
So they could make a joke on it and have him just sound hilarious. Well, hello, sir. We bring up Zelda and he shows up. It's just
right, exactly. Yeah, that's
they could make a big joke out of it where he sounds funny and then clears his throat. They make that joke in the Mario movie about certain ways characters talk in the games and how they're going to talk in the movie. Or there could be a lot of times where, at least at the beginning of the movie, somebody asks him a question and he goes to answer, and then somebody just butts in, and he's a silent protagonist for a little bit. Yeah, there's different ways you could go about it. That'd be great.
I definitely think they'll try at the beginning to make him silent, and then eventually they will build up to a point where he has to talk, whether it's a joke or something that will then open the box to where, oh, you talk. Okay, then,
right.
So like you said, they made the joke very at the beginning of the Mario movie that, oh, well, we don't have to be so crazy and exaggerated with our voices. We can just be, Mario and Luigi. So
it works out. It worked out really good.
Aaron brings up you could just continually make grunts and yells from the Ocarina of Time. I love it. You could do that too. Yes, moving on from movie talk here. We eventually got to get to it here. So let's preface this by saying there is some good news for Microsoft. Ukraine did pass the Microsoft acquisition of Activision-Blizzard, which they joined Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Serbia, Chile, Japan, and South Africa in doing so. They also made another deal with one of these cloud gaming providers that are in the European region. This one called Enware, that's a Spanish cloud gaming provider. That's a 10-year deal, whatever. I don't really want to get into what those deals mean. They also had their second best quarter ever for Xbox revenue, and all of that, heading into what they thought was going to be good news. It turns out that there is bad news for Xbox when it comes to this Activision Blizzard deal. It's been blocked by the CMA, and it's been blocked due to not consoles, not Sony, even though Sony probably has a little bit to do with it, not Nintendo. It's blocked over cloud gaming, of all things, Randy. This highly amazing version of video games that everybody plays, cloud gaming, that's what blocked it all.
Yeah, we can all blame Google Stadia for this not happening, because it pushed this cloud gaming thing to a whole new level, and it worked so well. No, it's interesting. I'm in the mind that I don't care about all these acquisitions. It got over the top there for a bit, where Microsoft and Sony just were trying to buy up everything. This Activision Blizzard thing obviously is a huge deal if it goes through, which now it's not looking like it will be in the UK, and we'll see what other countries do with it. But in the end, I honestly just don't care about the back end stuff. Just as long as the games come out and they're not full of microtransactions, then I'm happy.
And that's fair. I think from the casual perspective, or the person that doesn't pay attention to this every single day, that is pretty much what people's probably take is that, okay, I don't really care. Am I still getting my Call of Duty every year, whether Microsoft has it or not? Yeah. Okay. Then who cares? Am I still getting, Diablo and whatever on the Blizzard side? Can I still play Candy Crush? All right, whatever. That's probably what your GQ person, if you talk to them about that, would say, right? But I think from the perspective of let's look at this from the Xbox side of things, who have not had a good year. Good few, however many. They haven't had a good generation of video games right now. Everything's, when the Series X came out, the Series S came out, it was like, okay, this is a whole new ball game for Microsoft. They got the Bethesda acquisition, they got all this stuff going on, and then you get these small little wins, right? Like Hi-Fi Rush this year, and then a lot of it's just really, really negative.
It's so weird to me, because Game Pass is such a positive. I'm a Sony guy, but I think Game Pass is absolutely phenomenal, and everything that Sony attempts to do will never reach what Microsoft is okay doing with Game Pass. I think it's brilliant, but I remember all those E3s. Rest in peace to E3, but I remember all those E3s where Microsoft would come out. It's like, look at the 27 first-party studios we have now, and all these games that we're going to make, and they're all going to be on Game Pass. I think like 4 have come out in the last 12 months. Yeah. I mean, Sony's not much better as far as first-party stuff goes, but
Sony's first party is going to be amazing. So
yeah, but I will give a little excuse as far as, yes, COVID was a couple years ago now, but obviously it really wreaked havoc on a lot of gaming studios and slowed things down a little bit. And it also kind of backlogged a lot of these games where we are getting Resident Evil 4 Remake and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Final Fantasy 16 and Street Fighter 6 and Diablo 4 within like a 4-month period. It's like you would expect one of these games to come out every 4 months as like just game of the year contender, just banger games, and we're getting all of those on top of Dead Island 2. It was getting good reviews and it topped $1 million in sales, and it's become a pretty good thing. And the Horizon DLC is completely ignored, but I guess it was pretty good. So we have all this stuff in like a 4-month period. It's crazy how backlogged these releases are. And I think a lot of these companies are going, well, we need to find a window where things are not as crazy so our game doesn't get completely forgotten about.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that, Microsoft thought they were going to start hitting a period where it was going to be all good news, right? You get the CMA is going to pass it, because right now they're having to deal with the FTC sued them to block this. So they were hoping the CMA would pass. Then the EU passes next month, and they put pressure on the FTC to, hey, you're the only one. You might want to think about it. And then it actually turns out that the FTC met with the CMA, and there's possible, they may have talked about this. They said there's no litigation talk, but who knows? And the CMA decided to block it. And it just feels very arbitrary, like over cloud gaming, right? Like, so, cloud
that's
gaming
a weird reasoning.
Cloud gaming is part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. How much have you used ever the cloud gaming thing that Microsoft has? None.
I don't. I live in northern Idaho. Do you think we have the internet capability to run cloud gaming in a suitable fashion yet? No. Absolutely
not. No, I mean we have pretty good internet here in Miami, but still, there's even parts of Miami where the internet sucks. And even then, in the UK, the internet's even worse there. So I get it that they're saying that by default, because Google failed and Sony jammed it in the middle of like a million other things that's on PS Plus, that's like a thing that's part of PS Plus that they don't really care whether you use or not.
Yeah.
But you do have to use it to play PS3 games, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, like, it's not Microsoft's fault that everybody else that's involved in cloud gaming either failed, they don't care about it, even though supposedly Mark Cerny said that he figured out some kind of revolution with cloud gaming, like right before they were going to make the decision, which I don't think makes a difference. And, Amazon's they're the biggest player in all of this, and they're fine with whatever Luna's doing, but you don't hear anybody ever talking about Luna. It's just there. And it's there because Amazon has the money to just keep supporting it and, whatever. So it's not Microsoft's fault that they're the 60 to 7% dominance of cloud gaming. They're making all these deals with all these other providers, which all the providers have come out and gone, wait a minute, we want this to go through because we want those games on our platform. Now we don't get them at all. So it seems like the CMA is just doing this because they can, because they want to prove that you're not going to come in here because you're Microsoft and be able to tell us that we need to approve this deal. Now you got to figure it out. And it's like, first of all, most of y'all's issue at first was consoles, right? It was about Sony. It was about, we couldn't let Microsoft gain a foothold because it would ruin PlayStation's dominance in the arena. And then they realized how quickly that makes no sense, and how much PlayStation is actually doing to prevent Microsoft already from rising any higher. Now, a lot of that's also Microsoft's fault with, all these other problems with their games coming out and Halo kind of failing and other things. It's not just Sony, right? It's also Microsoft has not been able to get the foot in the ground that they thought they were going to. But this is supposed to be like an accelerant, right? This is supposed to be like the thing that went, all right, we're going full speed ahead. And now it's like, oh man, what do we do? And so, Brad Smith came out and called it like one of the darkest days for Microsoft in Britain ever, and that
goodness.
oh my God,
so dramatic.
Yeah, this is really bad. Well, to be fair, maybe it is bad for the UK citizens because you don't get all these games on Game Pass. Now you have to go and pay your however much money, which number it's more in the UK and Europe to buy games than it is here. So I think in a way, yes, it is bad. I think of all the things you could have criticized it for, cloud gaming just seems very like, really? We're doing this based on future possibilities instead of what's here right now.
Yeah, I could have understood that, well, this is just too much of a monopoly at this point with buying such a huge company as Activision-Blizzard and putting all this on your system. I could hear that argument. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Like, put whatever you want on your system. I like console wars.
Right.
Because I like it for the two companies to really battle it out.
Yeah.
If console exclusive gaming completely disappeared, which I know a lot of people for whatever reason wanted to do, then you would not have Game Pass.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't. Microsoft would have had no reason to do that.
They would have zero interest in just play your game wherever you want to play. I mean, I guess maybe they have Game Pass because they would try to get you to buy their system over PlayStation, but you could just play it either way. But
right,
I don't know. I like it's we're both old school wrestling fans. When wrestling has competition, the wrestling is better. Right. When video game companies have competition, it makes the companies better.
Yeah, well, think about Nintendo, Sega, how great that was to watch that unfold and how they each made each other better.
And just to prove your fact, right, Nintendo is off on its own island right now, doing its own stuff, zero competition. The one thing that listening to Game Scoop, trying to get myself ready for the show and just kind of hearing different stuff, I didn't realize the Switch has never dropped in price.
Nope, never had a sale. But
if they had a competitor,
yeah,
then it would be dropping in price. We would have another iteration of the Switch, which is what we got last iteration with Xbox and PlayStation, where they just kept throwing out different stuff, trying to compete with each other, bringing up better stuff, bringing up better games. Now, I admittedly believe Sony has won the exclusive games battle over the last several years, but that's why Microsoft went, well, we're not winning that battle, so let's win it this direction, and we get Game Pass. Like Nintendo, I would absolutely love to get into some of these other games that come out, but I can't use the same strategy I do with PlayStation and Xbox, where I'm like, I'll just wait for a sale, because that never happens.
Exactly. It never happens.
And when it is a sale, it's for 2 days, and it's down 10%. But it's full price from what it was released forever. Ever. I bet if
the lowest it goes is like $45, maybe.
Yeah, I bet if I looked up the Mario game, Mario Odyssey, I bet it's still $60.
Oh yeah, unless you caught it on the sale.
Yeah,
that they had
ridiculous.
Yeah,
and that's because there's no competition. So
they didn't even do their like Nintendo Selects thing that they've done with the other years because they were competing, right? When the Wii U sucked out loud, they had to do the Selects thing to get people to possibly buy those, right?
I love that the Wii U sucked because I am now 40% of the way through owning that entire library because there's not a lot.
Right, yeah. There's not. And most of it's on the Switch anyway.
And most of it got ported to the Switch, which means that the prices are not skyrocketing on those games yet.
Right, exactly. Great. So, I mean, that's the thing is that competition is good. And I get with the UK just going and doing it about a sector of gaming that may never take off because you have to have the infrastructure for it to take off. And as our friend Robert Taylor said, he lives in Southern California and he still doesn't use it. And that's the thing is that it's an option right now. Microsoft has it bundled as part of another thing that you buy. And I get it from a perspective of, okay, well, they could raise Game Pass prices after they pass this. Well, Microsoft really doesn't, they've already said that they weren't going to do that.
Yeah. And if they do, I think it would be options.
Right. Yeah. They could, release tiers of, well, whatever the $20 tier is, you get this and this and this, but there's still the 15 and the 10 that give you the same stuff. Just you get more with whatever they're going to put on 20, whether they tell you, okay, we'll make sure that I don't know. I really don't know what they could do there other than extra perks and maybe some like extra rewards, like getting, some kind of percentage off your games or whatever you wanted to buy them, or because you can't lock out, which that's the thing, is they don't want you putting the Activision Blizzard stuff behind another paywall that's higher. Right. So that's the thing is, yes, they don't, if you let this pass, if say Sony has a cloud gaming competitor, does it behoove them to put that on there? No. But like, you also don't seem to understand how those cloud gaming things work. The cloud gaming things are not like Sony store or Nintendo store where they get a cut, right? They're just renting the cloud gaming thing, and you're playing your game that you already bought somewhere else on there. So it's not the same thing, and it's just a lot of it just seems so silly what they're doing just to be able to block it. And then the thing is also, Microsoft may not have much recourse because, number one, it's very hard to get something passed and appealed through the CMA. It takes anywhere from 9 months to a year. So that means we're going to be talking about this again for another freaking year. I'm so tired of it. And this is from somebody, like I said on the last show, and I've you said it just now. I do not care about Activision Blizzard's games by and large. I don't. Yeah. I'll just buy Diablo whenever it comes out. I don't care about hardly anything Activision except for like Crash. If they make another one,
and if I have to play that on Xbox, then I have to play it on Xbox. I think you and I are both in a decent situation where we can play them on all these systems. And yes, there are people out there that can't. However, that is part of the battle between Microsoft and Sony.
Exclusives are part of the game.
Yes. Hey, do you want to play The Last of Us? Then you have to buy a PlayStation. Do you want to play Call of Duty? Then you're going to have to buy an Xbox. That's the way.
No. I mean, I think Call of Duty is too big to be putting on as an exclusive, and I'm fine if you don't put any of Activision's games as exclusive.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, if they did, it would not bother me one bit.
Their problem is they don't want Microsoft to get any bigger in the gaming market by doing this. They even told them, well, why don't you just make smaller purchases? Why don't you go after another gaming company that doesn't have the biggest game in all of gaming in it? And it's like, I kind of get it in a way, but they're shooting big because they know they need this to compete with Sony's dominance and Nintendo's dominance.
Just waiting for Microsoft to go, bitch, we already have Minecraft. We have the best game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, is I'm just sitting here. It flabbergasted me when that finally came out. And who knows? Maybe Microsoft, maybe this deal is completely dead. Maybe it is. I personally, it does not bother me. But I know there's a lot of people that were wanting this to be a thing. And I kind of wanted it to be a thing because I wanted to see Microsoft grow in the gaming space. I wanted to see Xbox become a more level player with PlayStation. Because why? Because like you just said, it makes PlayStation have to fight more. What are they doing right now? They're buying studios like crazy.
Yeah. And not doing much either. Like we have Spider-Man this year.
Well, I mean,
which is going to be great, but that's about it.
I think Sony's a different kind of thing because they want to release the quadruple A quality, like movie tier games when they release a game.
Right.
And now they're focusing on, we want to have like 1 million multiplayer things. Almost all these studios that they're buying are for multiplayer stuff, which personally I don't care about. But again, that's what makes the money. So they got to go where the money's getting made at the end of the day. But I don't think this is a good thing for the CMA. Maybe the EU will pass it, and then that will put pressure on the other two. And then Microsoft knows they can probably win in court against the FTC. And then the CMA is the one that gets put the pressure on. And then also if the UK, which this is what they want, right? They want the UK to get some kind of advantage. Maybe the UK gets isolated and they don't get anything Xbox.
Right.
Because you did this. So they may be coming back to rue this situation. And also Sony is not without fail here because Sony pushed hard against this. Sony made the CMA aware of a lot of stuff. And if this doesn't go through, Sony may wish that they would have let it go through, because I think Microsoft's going to come down with the hammer, and they're going to come down with the hammer hard. They're probably not going to get, they're not going to go after Square Enix or whatever, but they might Sega's doing stuff to make it look like they want somebody to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Microsoft comes around and goes, you know what? Let's see if we can convince Sega to come over here. Let's go try to grab some other. I mean, I don't know. Take-Two has been rumored around, that Sony's been sniffing around to see if they'll buy them so they can have, Grand Theft Auto.
Honestly, Grand Theft Auto would work great with Microsoft because they don't release games either.
Yeah.
Still waiting. I'm still waiting for this 6 news.
Yeah, I mean,
87 years.
Well, they are working on it. Supposedly. So, but that being said, they do have a game coming out in a couple of days, Redfall. So we'll talk about that when we talk about our hype level thing. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot to go into. There's people you can. I don't want to sit here and spend 30 minutes on this thing. There's a lot of people you can listen to. I'm sure there's lawyers you can listen to that will break down this whole thing for you if you want to deep dive into what Microsoft could do with the CMA. And I'm sure we'll get more news in this entire year now that we're going to have to talk about this again. So, if you want more of that, there's a million places you can go listen to it. I just don't want to spend an hour talking about this. It's not necessary. That being said, we did have, which has been another trend this year, Randy, that bad PC ports and then just bad running big games coming out. It started with Forspoken, and now it's bled throughout the year with other games, and now we got Star Wars Jedi Survivor, a game that made the folks that make Dead Island have to move up their game another week to make sure they didn't run into a game that people have been waiting for a while. And it comes out with some really bad PC port issues, and it has issues on the PS5 as well.
Yeah, it's one of those games where, we make fun of Dead Island 2 for being 10 years in development or after being announced and finally coming out, but at least they knew that whatever they were fixing needed to be fixed, and Star Wars just refuses. Again, this happened with Fallen Order. I'm a big fan of Girlfriend Reviews on YouTube. Go watch their first review of this game and how buggy Fallen Order was. And then Jens and I, for Chapter Select, like a year later, played it, and it was fantastic. And I think that'll be the same with Jedi Survivor. It came out in a buggy mess, which you and I know have had many conversations over the years of needing to put a stop to these developers going, we'll just patch it later. We need our money now so we can patch these broken games so they're playable in a few months. But that's what Star Wars does, and I wasn't too surprised that Jedi Fallen or Jedi Survivor is doing that same thing, and even less surprised that the PC port is broken. Guess what? The PC port is always broken. I'm not going to go full Greg Miller, but by the way, he has been absolutely hilarious.
He's PC port. He's gone total like WWE wrestler on the PC.
Full deal. However, you know what? This is also why I have zero problems with Microsoft buying Activision and then making a lot of those games exclusive, because it's a lot easier to make one game for one system than it is to try to port it to the 8 billion different setups that people have.
Exactly, especially for PC.
Yeah. Which is why the PC ports always struggle, because they work on it on a couple of different machines, I'm sure, just to test it out, but they don't have every configuration that's possibly out there, and then people will get their stuff and it's all messed up. So will it get fixed? Of course, it'll be fine. Everyone will calm down, but this is just a typical PC port. It just doesn't work at first.
I mean, but I do understand people being upset, right? You're paying $70 for this game, and it doesn't work on day one when you buy it. That is a very reason to be frustrated. A reason to go get your refund if you want to, whatever. Digital Foundry called it the worst AAA PC port of 2023 so far, and that's saying something, because we had some really bad ones already. I mean, that's the thing. I don't play this on PC. Mark's PC is not good enough probably anymore to play something like this, but even on PS5 it has some issues, and I think that says a lot that you guys did a delay earlier in the year to supposedly give this polish and fix it, and then
wasn't long enough.
It wasn't long enough, and I get it. There's some devs that were talking, and they said, look, if you want it to be a perfect your game will never come out because no game ever comes out perfect. There's always
Right.
an issue, but a lot of games come out where they're workable, right? Where you don't really have most issues. You might have some freak ones here and there, and you get fix those with a patch, but this seems excessive.
Yeah, this is not the EA way. The EA way is get it out, get the money.
Yeah.
And then possibly fix it later. There's a reason why, as a football fan, I don't remember the last time I bought a Madden. And I will every year download Madden on Game Pass 8 months after it comes out or whatever, just to try it out. And it's still a mess.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where at what point with EA do gamers go, you know what? Your game comes out, I'm going to wait a week.
Yeah.
And see these reviews because EA, they've completely lost my trust. Like, I was super excited for the new NCAA game to come out. I am terrified of NCAA football still being an EA product and it being a complete mess when it comes out.
Well, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, Dead Space Remake works just fine. So it's not everything. It's just, it seems like these big ones that they're really hoping are
or maybe it's because they can get the remakes going. So we need to remake Madden 06.
Yeah.
And it'll work out well.
Add in the season move in Madden 06. It'll be perfect. There you go. That wasn't in there.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully they're promising a lot of fixes. Hopefully it gets fixed sooner or later. But this is, again, why I don't go crazy pre-ordering games day one. I wait until there's reviews. I wait until... I mean, obviously, if I have to review the game myself, then obviously I can't make that decision. That my issue is to be one of the journalists reviewing and telling you whether it's good or bad. I also have a problem with journalists not pointing out the issues and then giving it an 8 out of 10 anyway. But that's been an issue for a long time with gaming press that we tend to do that. We tend to kind of push aside issues and say, well, I could still kind of mostly play the game, so it didn't affect it. And you know, I understand that you don't want to give a game a 6 because it looks bad when it's something they can fix later, but it's still bad for the consumers when it first comes out, and it's not good because they're the ones spending the money. So yeah, just wish sometimes there could be a little bit more honesty on that side of things. But again, you as gamers need to do your research sometimes, not get all in the hype cycle. And wait. Just wait. It's good.
Robert, wait on Zelda, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hilarious when everybody is sitting here complaining about, 30 FPS this and Jedi Survivor issues, and then Zelda's going to come out. It's going to have some issues running. It's not going to be 30 FPS all the time, or it's nowhere not going to be 60 at all. People are going to be playing the crap out of this thing. So it's hilarious to me. We have all these fights about graphics, and this game is going to come out and it's going to do crazy. So let's talk about graphics in a different way. Randy, both of us own the PSVR 1 at one time or another. How do you have any interest in a PSVR 2?
No, because PlayStation doesn't care about the PlayStation VR 2, so I'm not going to care about the PlayStation VR 2. It came out in February. I don't know. I've seen a single ad or commercial or anything from Sony. It just was like, here you go. It's the same thing if they ever came out with another handheld. It's like, I absolutely love the Vita. I don't play a ton of handheld gaming anymore, but when I do, I like playing on the Vita. I thought it felt good. The games looked really good on there, but PlayStation just did not support it. And they supported the Vita way more than what they are supporting the PlayStation VR 2. You put in the notes that this might be coming to stores. I didn't realize it wasn't, just because I have zero interest in it. And I just, no, thank you.
Yeah, so essentially the 270,000 units that sold so far is only through the PS Direct. So the hardest of the hardcore people are the only ones that have seen or touched this thing. And now it's going to finally come to stores. I don't know how much. I do think there's going to be an increase. I do think there's going to be a bump in people seeing it and saying, oh, there's a now PlayStation VR 2, and it has its own controllers, which was my hang up with the first one, because I didn't want to buy the Move controllers. So like, I don't know how much I'm sort of interested. If I had the space, would I consider it? But for me, the price is just $550 is a lot. You know,
for 7 games.
Yeah, exactly. For when you can, I could just buy the Quest 2 and get a lot of these same games. Is there going to be this one killer game that's going to come to PSVR 2 and I'm going to like, oh my God? I don't think so. I just don't think that. Look, there's a lot of VR defenders, and I get that VR is cool technology. We may one day get to be Ready Player One. We may get to that point. But it's not right now, and it doesn't seem to be the thing that a lot of consumers want.
Well, if we ever get to Ready Player One, it won't be Sony hardware that we put on our heads because they just don't care. They don't care about this thing.
Yeah.
There's somebody in the Sony studios that just begs and begs, and they absolutely love VR, and they get it to work. And somebody's like, all right, fine, just release this stupid thing. But we're not going to talk about it ever. Just like some son of a higher up that just loves VR. So they're like, all right, fine, we'll come out with our own stuff. But the company themselves, they don't care.
The same Sony CFO, Hiroki Hitoki, says that he believes that VR could be one of the largest growth markets in the media and entertainment segment for the next, 5 years. Whatever. They've been saying that for like 20 years before that.
Because they have no market. There's no Sony market in VR.
Yeah,
so of course there's a lot of growth because you have none there, but they just don't put the effort into it.
I agree. It's just the thing is like you can't have that same gaming experience in VR because like eventually you want to get that thing off your head. Like I don't want to spend 10 hours with that thing on my head. I don't know where Meta thinks that anybody wants to sit in an office with that thing on their head for 8 hours. So like that's the thing. Is just this is cool for something to show people to like maybe you have it at a party, they can play Beat Saber or some kind of family game or whatever that you could put on the TV, and then you have the one person wearing the headset or like, but man, as a single player, like let me sit in here and play this for hours and hours. It's not that. And I just don't think you get enough sales for that to be worth it. They are selling a lot of PS5s though, 6.3 million in the last quarter. They've shipped 38 million in total, which is ridiculous. Breaking all the records for all their other consoles. I mean, we both had our PS5s at launch. Like, you mentioned Sony with they're only going to release what seems like they're only releasing Spider-Man this year. They do have a PlayStation Showcase coming in a few weeks. I mean, what do you think they could surprise us with anything?
Of course, I think some smaller stuff, and I guess that Last of Us multiplayer thing will come out at some point this year too. They could definitely surprise us with some stuff, but I really think that they are building up for next year. And as far as the showcase goes, and I'm hoping these numbers prove it to be true. I'm just hoping that this next showcase is basically going, all right, the PS4 is finally done. Every game from here on out that we make is PS5 only. Like we suppressed some of the quality of these games so we could put it on the PS4 because we knew with all the COVID stuff that it was difficult to get our PS5. But now the numbers show that it's not as difficult as it was before. So from here on out, we're PS5 exclusive. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that too, that we're officially done with PS4 because, hey, we bought PS5s for a reason, right? And Final Fantasy 16 is showing that, what could you do with a PS5 if you only release it on there? It'll certainly look pretty. Like, I just want to see some games that are not only known IP, but new IP as well. What does Sony got cooking that's not some big known franchise?
Right.
Hopefully it's not all multiplayer stuff. Hopefully you're still getting some of the single player stuff as well. So I'm excited for this showcase that they're coming up, going to have pretty soon. And that's good that Sony's selling ridiculous numbers of PS5s. It shows people still want the console. Although I don't know if you've seen, both of us have kids relatively around same ages, and
Mhm.
you have your younger daughter as well. Like, I mean, obviously, mine isn't a big gamer. She plays Roblox and
Mhm.
things like that. I know Chase plays more stuff like I guess that would be known to us console gamers, but
Yeah.
where is he at with? Because I was reading stuff that our generation under us and then our kids, they're not big gamers. They're not big. Let me play on my consoles like we are.
Chase is in a weird mix where a lot of the games he'll play are very multiplayer based, and it's just so he can chat with his friends and
right
and
yeah
play, and that's fine. But he has recently really gotten into some of the older stuff. I wish I would have recorded this because it was hilarious to me afterwards. But he came into my office, and I'd finally gotten a bunch of older systems hooked up behind me again, and got things going. And he's like, I really want to learn about these old systems. He's like, well, some people are really into cars and some people are really into this or that. It's like, I want to get into like video games and know the history of video games. I'm like, absolutely, son. Let's go.
yeah, of course.
And I went, all right, well, you've been watching me play the RE4 remake and you absolutely like that game. It's like, yeah. I'm like, well, here. And I sat him down with the original Resident Evil for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
With PlayStation on the PlayStation system, and set him up with it and made fun of him because he took Chris, which is the hard mode of that game.
Yeah.
He had to pick the guy, and we all fall for that back in the day.
Right, exactly.
But I left the room for a little bit, and all of a sudden I hear, oh, these controls. Oh, I can't figure this out. Oh, I'm out of ammo. I'm out of ammo. All right, just start losing it. So he's starting to get into like the old classic stuff, and we'll see where we go from there. However, some of the accommodations at newer video games have made him a soft gamer boy. Right. Hopefully, I will harden him up. But
no, I mean that's true. It's the thing. It's the accessibility thing. The push for making things easier for people to just enjoy their game. It's not bad, but yeah, it's like when you're used to playing the Fortnite and all those things that are like make ammo available to you like everywhere.
Right.
It's a different experience than she's the same way. She sits there on Discord, talks to her friends. They'll play Roblox together. It's something they can all play together. She's not really about doing it by herself. Even if they have to watch a show, she has to have her friend there video watching it with her, which is funny. I'm on the mindset of like, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch this thing, don't bother me, like or I might put a podcast on and play or something. But it's just an interesting thing that I'm like, maybe Microsoft is actually going in the right direction with letting your games be everywhere, because that is what generations after us are going to do. They're not going to sit in front of their TV and play games. They're going to want to play on their phone. They're going to want to go to their friend's house, and
that's why the Switch has sold gangbusters.
Exactly.
That's why the Steam Deck did really well. Yeah.
You have that Asus ROG Ally thing that's about to come out. That's a Steam Deck competitor. See, that's the thing. Like you were talking about competition. We need more of that. We need. The problem with the Steam Deck is it's only being sold by Valve in Valve store. People are not seeing it. I think if you saw other computer-based, especially if it runs Windows, like things that look like the Switch, I think you would get people to say, oh, I can play games on this thing. And maybe I can't play Mario on it, but I can go on the Steam store and I can play all these kinds of games. Like, I think that would be amazing if we can get that and get more competition for Nintendo to do. And then also like Nintendo has that of, there's that quote by Miyamoto of he doesn't know if the Switch 1 games are going to work with whatever next Switch thing that they make.
Yeah.
And it's like the PC just has that library of those games all work, doesn't matter, And I mean, obviously Steam Deck's different because they have to make it work with that. But like, I wonder if it would push Nintendo to be like, oh man, we got to make sure the Switch 1 games work, because you're going to get a lot of people that may not buy the Switch 2 because they can't play the other games,
Yeah, that's possible.
I love seeing that. I hope we get more of these things, whether they're cloud gaming based or they're more user and operating system. More of those little Switch-like devices need to exist to
Mhm.
push Nintendo a bit more. Because as long as it's PS5 and Xbox Series, that's not bothering them at all. Really.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
And then just to throw this out there, because we both do things with the PS5, this month's we do know we're getting Humanity Day 1 on May 16th if you have extra or premium. So if you want
Oh
to
yeah,
play
that's that weird puzzle game. Okay.
exactly the one with
Yeah.
where you're the dog following the made by the Tetris Connect people.
Mhm.
So, but for the essential games, the free games you get every month, you're going to get Grid Legends, which is a decent racing game that's made under Codemasters banner that EA bought. Chivalry 2, which was another, decent game. And then Descenders, which is like a game where you're on a bike doing stuff. So, yeah, some decent stuff. It's not the big games or whatever.
No crazy stuff.
had.
So sometimes they don't put the crazy stuff here, and then they put it in the mid-month
Exactly.
catalog deal. So
Which
we'll
they've
see
been
what
getting
happens
really
with
good
those.
with that lately.
Yeah.
Like the last couple of months, they've been throwing in some heavy hitters. So let's hope
There have
they
been
keep
a lot
doing
of
that.
times where I'm like, oh, that's so good. I already played it, but that's so good.
Yeah, right. Oh, I might play it again. Like,
Right.
oh, there's that game that I kind of wanted to play before. Oh, now it's on here. I might play it actually. So
It was interesting they put all of the Doom in
yeah,
there last month. Like
all the old
everything.
Doom-
Even
yeah,
the fact they put Doom 64 in there, it made me laugh.
yeah, exactly. Everything Doom, and then almost that whole thing was Bethesda. I was like,
Mhm.
well, Microsoft's really trying to play nice right now,
Right.
putting that on there. So
Wonder if it gets pulled next month. Just from everything. that
right,
happened.
like, oh, you
never
guys
mind.
screwed us. Forget it. So that being said, we've talked about some of these things already.
Yeah.
But just to kind of have this segment here, what are your hype levels for some of the things that are coming out relatively soon, whether it's gaming adjacent or an
Mhm.
actual game? Most of these are game related because unfortunately, aside from this one thing that we're going to talk about, most of the gaming stuff is kind of like nebulous. We don't really know when it's coming out. It's just there.
Mhm.
Right? Other than like Witcher 3 season 3, and we know Sonic 3 is coming out at the end of the year, but that's way down the line.
Mhm.
The first thing that we got to see like this week was they showed the first teaser trailer for the Peacock Twisted Metal Show, which has Anthony Mackie. We're talking about like some known names here.
Yeah.
Barnett, Thomas Hayden Church, Nev Campbell. So Samoa Joe's in it.
Right.
So the trailer showed Anthony Mackie in one of the vehicles. He puts on like the You're My Sunshine song and starts going down the road shooting stuff, and then they showed Sweet Tooth at the end. I mean, not much to go on there, but like I'm not the biggest Twisted Metal guy, but I did play the game back in the day. July 27th when it's coming out. What is your hype level for this?
Where are you going? Like 1 to 10 kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Or,
1 to 10. Like
I'd say 6, which was more than I was expecting. I think honestly, it being a series and not just a movie works well with Twisted Metal. Just for the fact that if you ever played any of those original games, that whoever you beat the game with, you kind of got their backstory and what happened when they won the tournament. So I really think you could set it up where each episode, at least for the first few, is focused on one character.
Right.
And they will interact with others, but we get their backstory and we get what they would do if they win this Twisted Metal tournament. The fact that Samoa Joe is the body of Sweet Tooth and Will Arnett, of all people, it's the voice of Sweet Tooth is the weirdest combination to me. Like you said, the trailer was not much. It was very much a teaser thing. So I want to see what the show itself is about. But I think, again, the fact that it's a series and not a movie has me a little bit more interested just because of what they could do with it.
Yeah. For sure. I'm the same way. I kind of want to see what they can do with it. We have seen some bad video game series here recently.
Halo, we're looking at you.
Yeah. And hope, The Witcher's been the one standout, or the Cyberpunk thing, which was an anime. This looks interesting, at least. Like they definitely nailed a little bit of okay, this is Twisted Metal, right? At least the look and getting some of the vibe down. we'll see when the actual show comes out if they actually nail it or not. But
Right.
like you said, that's a good preface for it. You can get the backstories of these characters. You get some known actors in there that'll get people to pay attention and give it a look on Peacock. So if they can nail it, then it could be good.
Right. For sure.
One I'm also kind of worried about is the Gran Turismo movie, which I think is the only one of the movies that may come out this year.
I don't think it's a video game movie. I think it's
it's based on.
Yeah, it's based on the guy that played the games and then got put on the team and stuff. Yeah. I look at it more, and I still haven't seen it yet.
Right.
But that Tetris movie that came out recently on an Apple TV Plus or whatever.
I thought it was good, but I think it doesn't appeal to non-gamers. I think it appeals to people that really want to know.
But I don't, just from the trailers that I've seen from Tetris, I don't think that's a movie that Jens and I will cover. Because I think it's more of a documentary kind of a thing. And a docu movie or whatever you want to call it. It's not a movie or show that's put in that gaming universe. So Gran Turismo looked interesting, but it's like I said, I don't really look at that one as in the same vein as some of these other video game adaptations.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do with it, but I agree with you. It's more of like, the gamer that turned into a racer.
Right.
Not, it's something to do with the video game itself. And also Gran Turismo was so realistic. Like how much of it is really it's really just trying to simulate driving.
Now it'd be hilarious if they were showing all these scenes and in the bottom you said taken from Gran Turismo 6 gameplay. You're like, this was real. I thought
oh my God. We really stepped it up here.
Yeah, if they use this as a way to sell that game with how beautiful that thing is, then you know what? I'm down for it.
I'm sure it will get people to be like, oh yeah, there's a new Gran Turismo on the PS5. I'm gonna buy it, you know.
It would not surprise me if they threw it on a PlayStation Plus, like the month it came out.
Oh, for sure. Would be good if they could actually do that to get people into it for sure. And it's actually pretty decent in VR as well, from what I've heard too. So getting into actual games, we talked about this one, but I guess we didn't really give it a grade. Redfall is literally coming out in days. But I know both of us don't care about whether it's 30 FPS or 60 or whatever.
No.
Do you care about it at all? Have you seen anything for it?
No.
Okay.
When they first revealed this game, I had zero interest in it. The more they showed of this game, I had even less interest in it. Again, just because I'm not interested in something doesn't mean it's going to be bad. I hope it turns out to be better than some of these previews have shown. I hope that the fact that it's like 30 FPS or whatever people are crying about ends up not being a big factor and it works out well, but it's not a game for me.
I'm one of those that I know I'm going to try it because I like the aesthetic. I like the world. I like, vampire stuff. But my thing is usually arcane games don't vibe with me. Like I couldn't get it with Deathloop. I tried.
I'm the same way.
And like Dishonored, I tried. I just couldn't. It didn't work for me. Like so, I know I'm gonna run into the only thing that helps is Redfall is a shooter. So I'm better with shooters, but especially probably not. I'm not gonna have friends to play it with, even though I know you can play this solo. I probably will wind up dropping it. I'm sure, but I'm gonna give it a shot. But I'm not like I would say maybe 5 or 6 on that level. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is the game that everybody is waiting on. Both of us are in that same kind of realm of the first one just wasn't for us.
Yeah, and this one is even less for me. They're like when they came out with that presentation, 2-3 weeks ago now? That really broke down the gameplay of Zelda. I went, you know what? The people that absolutely love Breath of the Wild, like my son really liked Breath of the Wild. They're gonna absolutely love this game. But to me, some of the stuff that really irked me was, like you said, I felt like the world was a little empty. I am disappointed that we didn't have dungeons, but we have these weird little puzzle things that were spread throughout the world. I hated that my weapons just disintegrated.
And they're doing that again.
But
Here.
so that's what they've done is like, all right, here's everything that the people that really love Breath of the Wild loved, but now we've made it even more intricate. So now you can combine things to make different weapons that will break on you later. And the world now has an upper level and possibly a lower level with caves and stuff. And we'll see about that stuff. So now the world's even bigger. And I'm just like, yeah, this is just not for me. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts version stuff
Yeah.
going on here with the Zelda stuff. Again, I think people are actually going to love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those games like, I almost said Bloodborne. What am I?
Elden Ring.
Thank you. From last year, where would I argue with somebody that says that was game of the year? Absolutely not. But it's just not my kind of game, and that's totally fine. And that's what's going to happen here. So I think Tears of the Kingdom, if somebody plays it, and I pray that it's a 10 for 10 game for these people, and they go, "That's my game of the year," and it's like, that's great, but I'm not. I probably won't play.
So how much is Chase hyped for the?
He's interested. It'd be, and that's the one issue is being in the same household as him. Now that game possibly could be in my house. I haven't decided if I'm going to make that kid use his allowance to buy it though.
That's the way. That's the way.
But if it ends up in the house, I might give it a try at that point. So I'd say my hype level is like 2 or 3. It's more so just for people like Robert Taylor that love that first one. I'm more hyped for them.
I'm more of I definitely do enjoy some of the older Zeldas. I'm not. Yeah, Breath of the Wild was just like it was too much for me.
Yeah, 2D Zelda is better than 3D Zelda to me.
That's fair enough. You know. It's moving on from there to the next game, Street Fighter 6.
It looks so crazy. It looks so fun. Being a fan of Maximilian Dude and watching some of his stuff and watching some of his content on this, I cannot do fighting games. Like the closest to a fighting game that I can get into is either Smash Brothers or the WWE 2K games. And I don't really consider either of those like this kind of classic fighting game with all the crazy combos you could do. And even with those, for the most part, I just smash buttons. So will I play Street Fighter 6? Maybe at some point if it goes on sale or gets on PlayStation Plus at some point. But it's the same as Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I think the hype is so high on it because it looks so damn good.
Yeah.
That I really hope it hits. And I'm a little worried with that hub thing that they've created in the little city. But again, watching the beta or whatever with Maximilian Dude going around just punching people and it instantly puts you in a fight with them and you create your own characters for it. It's like, you know what? They might have nailed something here. And I really hope it hits.
I'm the same way. I can't really do fighting games. I did like Dead or Alive was a big fighting game that I liked, and Soul Calibur as well were 2 fighting games that I back in the day would always buy or play. But when it comes to Street Fighter, played the 2D version as a kid a lot, obviously. But when it became more intricate and it all of that stuff, when it went to 3D, I was kind of like, I think I'm kind of out there. But the actual like story mode thing, the world mode thing, like it looks interesting. I played some of the demo. That stuff is fun. Just going there, getting a fight with people is just. I don't want to. I know I'm gonna probably I'll go and play the story mode and stuff, but I'm not gonna go and play that and go fight people online where I'm gonna die instantly. For all these people that train forever to be in tournaments for this thing. That segment of the community, I'm sure, is super hyped for that. This is going to be a big game, I'm sure. Capcom's going to be making a lot of money off that. They're going to have another win on their hands. So
absolutely.
Kudos to them. Diablo 4. You talked about, sure you're probably going to play it, not at launch, but
in 6 months, I will say my hype is 7 or 8. I'll let everyone else be the beta testers. Yes, there's been a beta and they've done all this stuff. That's not really a beta yet until you do fully put it out there and everyone goes nuts. So I will let everyone else beta test this thing for me. And in 6 months or so, when a couple of my friends who are way into this Diablo series have found every nook and cranny and are replaying it for the 5th time, I'll give it a shot.
I know Mark will definitely be playing this on day one, whether it's a review code or he buys it. He's already leveled out the beta and everything. He loves Diablo, so I know we're gonna be talking about it on the podcast. I don't know. I'll have to play that beta. That ironically comes out the same weekend as Tears of the Kingdom. So once I play that, I'll see how it goes. I like Diablo a lot. It's just Diablo is one that I've always like associated with having a friend to play it with or whatever. So if I can get Mark to play with me, maybe I'll put it down on the first day, or not first day, but like within the early release month. But like you, it might be something that, you know, in 3 or 4 months, I might look at and go, you know what? Maybe it's Diablo time.
Right.
But that's another game that it looks like it's going to be great. And kudos to Blizzard. They need to win right now with all of the other stuff that's been going on with them, and all the kind of stuff that is kind of like the rest of the stuff that they make it exists, but it just exists, right? They need something that's like, oh, people are playing this right now and enjoying it.
I think this is the first test of people's morale systems. Like we've seen so many people go, I'm never going to buy an Activision Blizzard game again. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens when Diablo comes out and how many of those will be streaming it.
Oh yeah, they're going to buy it because, you know, the thing is like Diablo 2 Resurrection, that's fine, but that's for the people that like have nostalgia for that. Overwatch 2 was not what they wanted it to be. You know, Mark was very disappointed in it. So this is the first game that's like, this is brand new. Like this is what you've been waiting for when it comes to Blizzard, and hopefully it nails it for those people for sure. And then of course the one that's going to appeal to both of us here for sure, probably our most hyped game of the year, unless they end up releasing Rebirth this year, Final Fantasy 16. Me and Mark had a big debate about he wasn't a big fan of what they've done with it. As far as making it more,
top. It's so over the top.
So I mean, how do you feel about that? Like it's more Devil May Cry, more actiony. It's not, you know.
To me, especially watching that longer video that they came out with all the different systems and hunts and all that stuff. To me, you're right. It's Devil May Cry meets Final Fantasy 12.
Right.
And not only just the aesthetic of it, but with the different jobs you can go out, the different hunts that you can go out and do. From everything I've seen, it's like the main mission, if you go straight through it, is a decent length, but there's so much stuff to do sidewise that will completely derail me. Because while I have said that I wasn't into Breath of the Wild because it didn't lead me in any direction, when there's 97 question marks on a map, say Witcher 3, I never leave the main area because I have to get rid of all the damn question marks. Right. So this is a game that I feel like most people will be talking about the end game, and I'm sitting there like 30 hours in, just still early on. Just
I haven't even gotten past chapter 2 yet because I'm stuck, you know.
I haven't completed chapter 2, but boy, have I completed 17 hunts and done all this extra side stuff. I'm very hyped on it. I do think that out of the games that I was hyped for that I knew were coming out this year, this has the greatest chance of disappointing because it is so overhyped. And it is one of those games that was supposed to come out years ago and has been around forever. And I think that they've put maybe too much into it. So we will see how it ends up going. And plus with the different battle system and stuff, maybe it'll just end up being one where I'm not into it as much as I had hoped. But no, I'm absolutely psyched. And I will go against my better judgment and probably get this day one as well.
Yeah, definitely going to get this day one just because it's Final Fantasy. You know, the only other game I bought this year that thankfully that I haven't gotten to review is Theatrhythm or Theatrhythm. You know, you love that you platinumed it all.
So I'm close. I've done all the quests. I've done all of the crazy crap that they want me to do. I've done the endless world. I just have to go through and kill more enemies because you have to kill like 5,000 enemies. I'm at like 4,400.
Oh, wow.
And instead of you could play the what is it, Price of Freedom song from Crisis Core.
Yeah.
Because you can kill like 30 people in that song. But instead of playing that over and over, I'm just kind of waiting for DLC to come out. So the new DLC will hit, and I'll play those 4 or 5 songs that hit. And then if I still have not reached said trophy by the time all the DLC comes out later this year, then I'll cheese it a little bit.
You think that I think that there's going to be Final Fantasy 16 DLC that comes
I
out
hope
for
so.
that.
That'd be
Right.
really cool. I mean, it wasn't part of the roadmap, but it would be really cool if they added.
I'm hoping that there's some
Final Fantasy
surprises
16
to
stuff.
add content and stuff like that. Like, you know, I like the little, you know, the last 3DS one had like this elongated quest thing where it went through these.
Right.
It's kind of similar to the ones that are there now, but it kind of felt more like you're going through this like labyrinth of, oh, here's
Right.
all these different ones that you can pick from, and
Instead,
whatever.
here's just now pick one of 3.
Yeah.
All right, now you have to do this song. Now, all right, now you get one of 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is the one that just look. I'm not the biggest, I want to say, Devil May Cry fan, but I do like the action combat. You know, like that was in 7. My thing is I worry with the enemies that they showed in that longer version. If it takes me 5 minutes to kill every single enemy that shows up,
God.
I'm gonna get pissed.
Yeah,
like
that might stretch it out a bit too.
Yeah, like I don't want to. Like Strangers in Paradise is actually really good as well. It has some of that Dark Souls kind of combat or whatever, but it doesn't take forever to kill something. You know, you can get overpowered and kill stuff. Like, I'm just hoping that it's something that you were just fighting some of the like mini boss enemies, you know, tougher enemies, and there is some of the enemies you're just gonna go whack, bam, goodbye, and go move on to the next thing. And it's not like everything has to be this elongated battle, because then that's gonna wear on you.
I just honestly hope the story hits.
Yeah, that too.
Because
and the story looks interesting.
I like 15 more than a lot of people, though. I really do need to go back and play it now that they have the one version out where they fixed a lot of the issues that we all had with it. But
I wish they would have been able to complete that, though. It sucks that.
So I mean, that story obviously did not hit very well. 13 I thought was very, very bad. Like, I know a lot of people thought, oh, it was linear as all hell. It's like most of those Final Fantasies of the time. Like, go back and play Final Fantasy 10. This is just as linear.
Oh yeah,
but the story in 10 was so much better. I just couldn't get it to any of the characters in 13. 12, I thought, had a very interesting, old schooly kind of a story to it. And of course, from 10 on, they were hitting their peak. You know, that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 range.
Right.
The stories were there. So I'm hoping that this is not what we've gotten from Final Fantasy over the last few iterations, where it's way over the top graphics and beautiful scenes, and we completely forgot about an actual story. Because it's one of those, we've said it before. How many times was Final Fantasy like the top notch as far as graphics go, or the cutscenes were just ridiculous? And I think Square Enix went, oh, that's what they want from us. They don't care about the story part. They just want these over the top
action things, and
So I'm hoping the story nails. I really, really do. And then, like you said, then we wait for Rebirth. And I
also worry about those icon fights too. Like, are they stuff you're just gonna walk in and quick time event and kill them really quick?
Well, it seems like each one's like a different type of gameplay, which I think will keep it fresh at least. But I do have to say, I think we see Rebirth at the PlayStation Showcase.
I really hope so as well. I hope that's why we haven't heard anything about it.
I don't think we see a lot of it. I don't think we get a date by any means, but I mean, we've seen a scene that will happen at the very beginning of that. But I would like to start now seeing a little bit more of that game.
Yeah, I hope we get a little bit about the Ever Crisis as well. I'm still kind of, I know it's on your phone or whatever, but it still looks awesome, and I want to play that. Good. So
for sure.
All right. Well, that's it for that, and I think that's it for the show this week. Just to kind of, because we always do this here, what games are coming out in this week ahead, and of course we talked about Redfall already. That's the big game that's coming. You can go get it on Game Pass, on PC Game Pass, or just you can go buy it if you want as well. And then there's also another game coming called Ravenlock that's coming to Game Pass. That's made by the same people that made Echo Generation, which that was a really fun indie game that kind of felt very 80s. So yeah, definitely go check that out as well. That's coming on the 4th. So there's not a whole lot coming at the beginning of the month, really. That's worth noting. But those two games are pretty good. And I mean, hopefully Redfall is a hit for some people, regardless of whether
Right.
you care about what FPS it plays at or not. But yeah, whether you're playing those games or you're playing something else, enjoy your gaming. Thank you, Randy, so much for being on this week. Mark, hope you feel better, man, and recuperate soon. And we'll see you all later.